everybody, welcome back to my channel, unless of course you're new here, in which case, hi, hello, my name is Ashley, and welcome to my random little corner of the internet. As you can see from today's title, I am going to be going through my April wrap-up and everything that I read during April. As you may have seen on my April TBR, April was the owls, the month we did the owls, and so most of these went towards that. The first couple ones, however, don't. So we're just going to get into it. The first book I read this month is called Wicked Liars, and it's by Laura Lee. It's an ebook, so I'm going to put it up on the screen right now. It was an advanced reader's copy, but as of the time that I'm posting this, it is available for purchase. It is more on the adult side. There is quite a bit of smut in it, but I have always loved every book that I've read from Laura is fantastic. She is just brilliant writer, and I love Wicked Liars. And I cannot wait for the second book to come out in June, I believe, is when she said she posted it. Originally, Amazon was like, it'll be out in December, and we were all freaking out, and luckily she did post on her Advanced Readers Facebook official group that it will be more like June that it gets released, so I'm excited about that. I did give it a 4-star, though, because there was some triggers in there that were a little off-putting, but I still enjoyed the story itself. It follows a girl named Jazz, who her mother has died, and so she's having to move in with her biological father, who she's never known, and he is a very rich, hoity-toity guy, and he has a new wife and a stepdaughter, and it very much turns into a wicked stepsister kind of thing. They go to a very rich school. She meets a girl named Ainsley who she becomes besties with because, unlike everybody else who's kind of a butthead at the school, Ainsley's really cool. And then Ainsley has a big brother named Kingston. No, twin brother named Kingston, where at the very beginning they don't get along, and then suddenly they're getting along. It's definitely a haters to lovers or whatever it's called type of story. But yeah.
Editing Ashley here. I am going to say that Wicked Liars went ahead and acted as an arithmancy book for the owls to go with my animagus training, because other than what's written by Laura Lee, I don't really read this kind of book. It makes me feel awkward when I read it. So I would say it was definitely out of my comfort zone. It would be the opposite of the stuff I usually like to read. So it did go toward my owls.
The next book I finished, I think I started it in March, but I finished it in April, was Supernova by Marissa Meyer. It is the third in the Renegades trilogy, and I absolutely loved it. 5 stars. If I could have given it more than 5 stars, I would have given it more than 5 stars. I still need to do just a book talk on that one or the trilogy altogether, but I did listen to it, and I did that so that I could listen to it while I was driving. I don't recommend that. I got to the end of it and was completely floored, and my daughter was in the car, and she thought I was, I don't know, gonna pass out or something while I was driving. It was a little crazy. But just like the other ones, it follows Nova Artino, or Nova McClane, and she is trying to take down, or she thinks that she's trying to take down the Renegades, who are the good guys, and she's working with the anarchists, who are the bad guys, and it just, at this point, she doesn't know what end is up and what's down. Like, everything that she's ever known, or thought she's known, and is raised to have believed is just on it's all up topsy-turvy. And then there's Aiden, who she's completely fallen in love with, and she doesn't, like, he's a good guy, and she's a bad guy infiltrating the good guys, and so she doesn't know what to do with that. And it's just beautifully written. Marissa did a fantastic job, and it's just, yes, absolutely, I love that book. Okay, so the next one that I read did actually start once I found out the owls were happening and everything like that. That's when I started this reading list. And so the first one in that reading list I did, and it fit my divination requirements, because divination was you put all of your TBR into a list and then have a random number generator pick a book And so I got lucky, and that one was Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor. I did give this book 5 stars. The world that Laini created in this book, I felt like I needed to be in it. In my mind, and I could be totally wrong from what she thought, I was thinking very Arabian, maybe Egyptian. Egyptian is probably more in my mind where I'm going. Very Egyptian type city in the middle of the desert kind of thing, like Lost City. And we do follow, the main character's name is Laszlo Strange. Strange being the name that they give bastard children, kind of like how in Lord of Game of Thrones, how children born in the north that are bastard children are named Snow, or in the south they're named Sand. Well, in Strange, they're called Strange. And we follow him in his journey to finding this lost city that he has been obsessed with finding out about, like researching and all this like this. He ran away to a library after being raised in a monastery, and he is just so enthralled with all of it. And he gets picked up by these warriors who are from this city and gets taken back to figure out this problem that they have. They have this problem, and they wouldn't tell anybody what the problem was until they got there, and it ends up being exactly what Laszlo thought. And he thought he was coming up with some crazy thing, and it wasn't crazy. It was exactly spot on. It does go back and forth between points of view. You're seeing the story from Laszlo's point of view, or it switches back to the character's name, Sarai, I think is how you pronounce it. She is, preventing spoilers, she's just another character. She's what I would consider to be the female lead. This book was phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. And it's just pretty. I know I said that in my TBR when I talked about it, but it's just so pretty. Alright, so I passed my owls for divination with this one. Next up was City of Bones. This is the first in the Shadowhunters series. It's the first book written by Cassandra Clare. I did give it 4 stars. I really do enjoy it. Absolutely. Couldn't put it down. This book fit into my astronomy. The only thing for that one was it had to be read at night. It didn't matter what the book was. It just had to be read when it was dark outside. And so, we read it out loud, my husband and I, because this is his favorite book series. I don't know how to talk about it without giving spoilers for the rest of them, because there is 6 in the series. So we do get introduced to the Shadowhunters. We get introduced to Clary. She is, as far as she knows, she's just human, and then she finds out that she's not human, and she is human, and I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. But basically, she's a Shadowhunter, which means that they can see and hunt demons. I'm really bad at it, like, describing what that is, but...
Editing Ashley again. I kept talking about how I didn't want to do spoilers for this book, but this book has been out for 13 years, because it came out in 2007, and there's a TV show about it, and a really bad movie, so you probably already know what the book's about anyway.
So that is my astronomy book, was City of Bones by Cassandra Clare. The next book that I read was another audiobook, is Tales of Beetle the Bard by Beetle the Bard / J.K. Rowling. And this book fit into my potions book, which was Shrinking Solution, any book under 150 pages. It took me about an hour, and I think it was an hour and 10 minutes or something like that was the audiobook. And it's a collection of short stories written for the Wizarding World. They're supposed to be like children's stories that children in the Wizarding World were told when they were little. I would chalk them up there with, like, the Grimm's Brothers, of how, like, Muggle children learn, and how there's always, like, this weird, people die, and it's just some weird stuff going on. But I did give it a 3, just because, a 3-star, because, I don't know, the audiobook was awesome, because they used actors' voices, like, from the Harry Potter world. So we had, Jason Isaacs, Bonnie Wright, Bonnie Wright, that's a singer. Bonnie Wright, Ivana Lynch, And then there was the lady who played Madame Pence, the librarian at Hogwarts, and then the actress who played Hermione for the Cursed Child play was one of them, and I just can't think of their names right now. Sorry. Oh, and Professor Flitwick. Warwick Davis was the other voice. Yeah. The next one I read was the sequel to Strange the Dreamer, which is Muse of Nightmares. Also, beautiful book. This one fit for my Care of Magical Creatures class, which was any book with a creature with a beak on the cover. That's a big white eagle bird. So there's his beak right there. So, there's not much to talk about this one when I talked about Strange already. It's just the ending of it, like the wrap up, even though the very end of it goes, the end. Or is it? Like with a question mark? Like, I would love to see more of what's going on, because at the end of it, the entire grouping of them decide to go on an adventure, basically. Like, they find out some stuff that I don't want to talk about, because I don't want to give spoilers for it. At the end, they find out things, and so they're like, we're gonna go look for these people, and then that's how it ends. Like, it's the ending to the story that we've been presented so far, but there is definitely, like, she could write more. She could give us more, and it would be wonderful, and I would love to see that. Maybe like some short stories, like a short story collection, or some novellas. I don't know. I did give it 5 stars, because just like Strange, it's just so beautifully written. It's just, the imagery that is presented is fantastic. Like, you're there, you're in Weep with them, and it's just beautiful. It did confuse me a little bit, because when the first chapter started, it's talking about these other characters that we hadn't been introduced yet, but it starts making sense, because it starts switching a little every time you hit a new part of the book, because the book is split into 4 parts, and each time you hit a new part, we learn more about these other characters, and you find out, oh, okay, like, it makes sense that it's switching back and forth. The next one I read was my Defense Against the Dark Arts class book. For the profession that I chose, which is Hogwarts Professor, the only book that was completely required, and it, like, the one subject you had to do no matter what subject you were wanting to teach, was Defense Against the Dark Arts, and it was about Grindylows, which means you had to read a book that took place by the sea or in the water, and so I read The Sea Witch by Sarah Henning. I was really excited to read this when I found out what it was about. It's supposed to be like the origin story for the Sea Witch, or Ursula. Her name is not Ursula in the book, but she is basically, that's what it is. She is Ursula, she is the Sea Witch, but this is before all of that happened. And going in, you knew how it was, like, what was going to happen, because obviously that's the point, is that it's the origin story. So eventually she's going to become the Sea Witch. But when it starts, she is just a girl. She lives in Denmark, and she's had a lot of trauma in her life. Her best friend was drowned in the sea. Her father is a whaler. Her best friend is the prince, and everybody thinks that she is below him, because, in society she is. She's just a fisherman's daughter, and even though that fisherman is the king's fisherman, that's the only way that they've been allowed to stay friends, is the fact that he works for the king. Like, he is specifically the king's fisherman, and in this tiny little town, like, that is life. Like, fishing, whaling, like, that is life. And so, they've become friends and everything like that, and then suddenly this mermaid appears, and she's like, mermaids don't exist, that's not possible. And then she finds that same person who she thought was a mermaid come into town, and it's the same girl, and kind of looks like the friend that drowned 4 years ago, and her name is Annabeth, and she saved her best friend. The best friend's name is Nick, or it's some big long official title name, but he goes by Nick, and he got thrown off his ship on his birthday and almost drowned, and the mermaid saved him. And because she saved him, she wanted to, her story as to what she was doing on land was that she wanted to find him. Like, she felt just like the Little Mermaid, like, she saved him, and she saw him, and she knew then it was true love, and she had to find him and fall in love, or have him fall in love with her, and it would be happily ever after. So that's the story that Annabeth presents to Evelyn, who is our main character. And I gave the story, I gave it a 2 stars. It seems like a fantastic premise. And I went into it with, and it's probably the problem, is I went into it with such high expectations that it fell short for me. I almost gave it a 3-star because I knew that when I started it, I was going to finish it. Like, it gave you enough that you had to find out what was going to happen, but the plot twist, it got set up way too early. Like, it was revealed way too early in flashback scenes that could have been put in at the end. Like, that's, I think, when I wrote my review, that's what I said. Like, she starts giving you flashback scenes halfway through the book, but I feel like it would have been more impactful had it been at the end. Like something happens and then suddenly everybody's like, why? Why is this happening? And then that's when we get the flashbacks and find out. But I don't know. So, I mean, and other people may love it. I do not, I don't like to discourage people from reading books, even if I hate them, or not hate. Hate is a strong word. If I dislike a book, I still don't, it's just like when people tell you a movie is bad, I'm still gonna go watch it. You could tell me it was the worst movie that you've ever seen in your entire life, and the critics could say it too, and I go and I love it. So, it could be your favorite book. I personally I'm never gonna read it again, to be honest. The next book that I read, and this one covered for Transfiguration, which is any book having to do with shapeshifters. I read the second book, City of Ashes by Cassandra Clare. Again, I don't want to give you too much because I feel like if I tell you about this, it's just a whole lot of spoilers, and anything about this, it's spoilers for the first book. So we still following Clary and her best friend Simon and her brother Jace and the Shadow Hunters in New York. Things happen. We meet new people. People are bad. And that's it. It's a great book, though. I gave it a 4-star. But that was for Transfiguration, which it's anything having to do with shapeshifters. And then the final book that I read this month, I actually listened to it more on audiobook, but I do have the physical copy of it, is Heartless by Marissa Meyer. This book, again, has to do with the Red Queen and her origin story. She didn't want to be a queen. She still didn't want to be a queen. She wanted to own a bakery. She was simple, like, she was a Marquez's daughter, so she was of noble blood, but her best friend was her maid, and together they decided they wanted to open a bakery, and everybody was like, she makes the best stuff, and everybody's like, but you can't do that. You're Marquez's daughter, and you have to become something awesome. And halfway through, like, the king is wanting to marry her, and her mom's like, oh my goodness, you have to do it because it's the king, and you're gonna become the queen. And she's like, but I don't wanna, I wanna bake. And then she falls in love with somebody else, which is intriguing. I mean, you find it out pretty early in the story that she falls in love with the court jester, and it's just really cute. But just like the Renegades trilogy, it's beautifully written. It's also, like I said, by Marissa Meyer. This book, I didn't even say that. This book fit into my arithmancy category, because arithmancy was the heart rune, which was basically, that's not arithmancy. Ancient runes. I keep saying arithmancy. This fit into my ancient runes category, which was the heart rune, which was any title that had heart in the title or had a heart on the cover. So obviously, Heartless. And here we go. I did give it a 4-star. I don't know, 5-star, it just has to be almost life-changing, where I was just like taken aback. I mean, it's a beautiful story, but 4 stars. 4 stars is good. Alrighty, guys, and that's going to wrap up my April wrap-up. I do hope that you enjoyed it and maybe got some new recommendations as well. If you like this video, don't forget to hit the thumbs up button as well as that big red subscribe button, and don't forget to hit the notification bell so that you are always notified when I upload a video. And until next time, bye!